What could be more relaxing than sitting down with a piece of layer cake or maybe a sweet jelly roll and a cup of tea to refuel and dream about your next quilting project? Oh, what's not to love about sweet treats? Now you can stitch up some charming quilts from sweet fabric treats. Layer cakes and jelly rolls. Well, one fabric manufacturer cleverly cut up a stack of 10-inch fabric squares, tied them with a cute bow, and named the stack Layer Cake. Well, every color, coordinated fabric in a new line is featured by the talented designer. All the work of selecting fabric and cutting squares has already been done for you, and all of the fabrics look great together in the finished quilt. Well, jelly rolls are pre-cut, salvage to salvage, 2.5-inch strips from every piece in the line. You can quickly see all of the different colors and prints when you turn the roll around. Now you can pick up a jelly roll that matches the layer cake, or you can get a package that has both the layer cake and the jelly roll in one package. It's much easier. Well, I like the bright and cheery prints with lots of color in them. It's just so much fun to use. But you can also get solid pastels in a jelly roll pack. It's just great. You know, fabric manufacturers call pre-cut squares and strips by different names, but nonetheless, I love using them. We have a sweet quilt for you called Dessert Time Quilt. It's made with layer cake and jelly rolls. Teresa made an old-fashioned looking dessert time quilt with 1930s reproduction prints. The center is made of large triangle squares. Now, 2 blocks are made at the same time with 2 different 10-inch squares. You need a total of 40 10-inch squares to make a lap robe set together in rows 5 by 8. The easy piano key border framing the blocks is made from 2.5-inch jelly roll strips. And to complete the feeling of the Depression era, Teresa finished the outside edges with jumbo rickrack instead of binding. It's just very quaint, and this is so much easier than digging through a scrap bag. Sounds good. Join me for Dessert Time Quilts. These fabrics are as yummy as strawberry layer cake and blueberry jelly rolls. Now, if you already have a stack of fat quarters, you can cut them up into the Dessert Time Quilt. All you need to do is have a total of 40 10-inch squares and 40 2.5-inch strips. Well, this one looks rather planned with rows of red alternating with rows of blue in the dark, mixed up with lights on the opposite side. It looks great. And then if you're using yardage, you can use the same fabric for the framing border around the outside edge and the same fabric for the binding. Perfect. How about some more fat quarters for the piano keys, and you're on your way. Well, I already took my fat quarters and I stacked them up. You want to have your salvages lined up. That's 18 inches, that's a fat quarter, or 9 and 9, 18, and then half of the width of the fabric, which is usually 20 inches to 22 inches. So layer up several so you can cut them at one time. Now, this ruler is the perfect ruler for cutting up fat quarters. I said, oh my gosh, I can do this so fast because it's marked off in 2.5-inch increments. So just line up this straight edge across the bottom. I've got the salvage on the opposite side. We will cut salvage to salvage. So right here, start at 0 so you can straighten the edge of all of them. Just put your cutter in the 0 mark. Now first, cut your layer cake. That's 10-inch squares. So put your cutter in at 10 inches, layer straight across, and then from that point on, you can get 3 2.5-inch strips remaining on this strip. And you are going to see there is so little left. Okay, let's just take this down This is extra. This is your next quilt right here. So take that, save these for your piano keys. Those are all your 2.5-inch strips. Now this is a 10-inch wide strip. This is extra here. So now take this, turn it the opposite way, and cut this into two 10-inch squares. Let me just lay it back down. Line up a 0 right along the edge, a little bit extra. Trim that off and go at 10 inches and again at 20. And this is what's left. Just a little bit. Great for a scrappy strip quilt. It's perfect. Now, these are all set. As long as you get a total of 40 and 40, it's going to work great. But I'm just going to stack these up because I am moving along. I already have my layer cake all cut and ready to sew. Now there are 40 10-inch squares in this, and what you want to do is go through and sort out 20 lights and 20 darks. Hopefully it works out even. Then you have to just start playing and moving things around. Or how about some lights and mediums and darks in another stack? And not only do you want to think about what is light and what is dark, but make sure you're not putting the same prints together or the same values, something different about each one so they look good. So I'm calling this my light stack and this my dark stack. So just take and work in pairs. Flip this dark right sides together to your light. Ooh, they look good. These are the wildest prints. I love them. I think the older I get, the wilder I get. So then take a ruler that reaches from corner to corner because you want to draw diagonal line. Mark it with your permanent marking pen. Make sure you've got it centered right in there. That's looking good. And then it does help if you put 2 pins in. One on each side. One here, one here. Well, it's really fun whenever you work with all of these different prints. They're so much fun. Now all you have to do is just sew 1/4 inch down one side of the line, turn it around, and sew 1/4 inch from the other side of the line. My daughter-in-law wants to make a quilt for her friend who's having a baby in 2 months, and she said, I need something easy. And I thought, oh, how easy is this? Oh my gosh. The designer already spent months putting prints together in different colors that would look great in a finished quilt. That's good. And then the fabric company went, cut out all the pieces for you already. So it saves you at least a day cutting out your strips, cutting up your squares, getting everything ready. I mean, why not get such a great head start on it? Sounds easy to me. Okay, now once you have your sewing 1/4 inch away from the line, take your ruler again and just cut it right in half on the diagonal. So you've got 2 different pieces, 2 different squares. Now I'm going to show you 2 different ways of squaring up these pieces. The first one is with the triangle square up ruler. Now the pieces are not pressed open, but I'm going to look on the ruler, turn number 1 at the top, and go right down to 9 inches. I want to square this to 9 inches square. So put your 9-inch line right on your stitching line. Got some extra. Actually, you're doing this just so you have all of your pieces exactly the same size. So just cut and cut over. And that should be a 9-inch square. Now this one is squared up unpressed. So let's just go ahead and take this one, set the seam with the dark on the top, and then just open and press into the dark. You want to make sure you press all of those seams into the dark. All right, well this one is already 9 inches square. But now let's take this one that is not pressed open yet, and we're going to square it after we press it open. 2 different techniques. You can decide which one you like the best. Okay, now it's squared up. It's pressed open, but now we're going to square it up with a different ruler. Let's just take this, get rid of it, and use the 9.5-inch square up ruler and square it to 9 inches. So I'm just going to put the diagonal line right down along there. I see that I have extra on the 9, so I'm just going to hold it, cut up one side, and cut the other. This is excess. Get rid of it. Now take the corner that you've already squared up 2 sides. This time place 9 inches right on the left edge and across the bottom. Put your ruler on there. Cut. This is extra. All of this is gone. And all I have to do on this one is just cut off those tips. Cut them off on both sides. These are the first of 40 squares that I need. Well, let me finish my squares and I'll show you how to sew them together. I laid out chocolate layer cake with rainbow frosting, and it looks good enough to eat. Well, I used my design wall. I put 5 blocks across and 8 blocks down for the total of 40 blocks. Now, lay it out, move it around, see what you like. But don't move it too often because once it's sewn together, you'll never notice if the same fabrics are together or the same prints are together. Now, I personally like to put my darks in the lower left-hand corner, but the design is completely yours. That's the best fun. Now, I like to sew vertical rows together, always from top to bottom, and not clip my threads in between. It goes really quick that way. You don't have to jump up and down from your design wall. Start with vertical rows 1 and 2, and just flip 2 to the left on top of 1, and then the next one over on top, and you just keep on stacking from top to bottom, and the top block is always on the top. And then just take it and sew your first 2 together, and you just add on the next pair, and you just keep on sewing until you have that whole vertical row sewn together. Don't clip your connecting threads. And then you just go over to row number 3. These stay right side up in single rows. Just pick up 1, straight down, 2, and down to 3. And once you have 3 stacked, you can just keep on going. How about 4? And I actually put tags right on the tops of these rows, put pins on them as well so that they don't get twisted as you're walking to your sewing machine. And then row 5, last row, get them all stacked up from top to bottom. Now, go ahead, go back to row 1 and 2, open it up, and add vertical row number 3, straight down, don't clip it. Vertical row 4 goes on to 3, and then the 5 goes on to 4, straight down the whole way. And then when you go back across the other way, at that seam, push your seams in opposite directions. They'll lock together, press your top, and you're done. Now's the time to take apart your deli roll for the different parts. Start out looking for the light. You need to have a total of 6 of them for your framing border. And because it's your framing border, leave them salvage to salvage or approximately 40 inches long. Don't cut them on the fold. You need 1 whole one for the top and 1 whole for the bottom. And then of the remaining 4, piece 2 together for each side, and that takes up the 6. A little bit more math. We've got to go on to the piano keys. Count out a total of 24 whole strips, cut them in half for 48. And with the binding also, count out 7 whole strips, cut them in half, you've got 14. Enough of the math. Now, take your 48 half strips of your piano keys and lay them out in pairs. And you're actually going to make 4 sets with 12 in each set. So take them, sew them together, and press the seams in one direction. It's going to make it a lot easier when you sew them together. We'll take this set and just fold it in half. It's going to be a lot easier to cut. These are cut into 6.5-inch segments. So I'm just going to line it up at 0 on this left edge, straighten that edge. It's looking pretty good anyways. And then cut it at 6.5 inches. Now I'm using the 6 by 24-inch ruler and the lines on the cutting mat. So I'm going 6.5. I'm going to move over to 13. Let me get that lined up. 13, and then the last number is 19.5. Line up the 1/2-inch line on the 1-inch line on the mat so you can cut that off. Not much left at all. This is looking pretty good. Now, if you take 4 sets and you cut them into 3 each, that means you've got 12 sets of these. So now we're going to start sewing these together. For the sides, you just need to have 2 of these, so you end up with a total of 24 in one big long row. But the easy thing is you only need 23, so you have to unsew one. Here's one that I already sewed together. There's a total of 24 in the row. We get to unsew. Ooh, and I love to do it with my rotary cutter. Be careful with this one, but it sure goes fast. Okay, I'm holding my cutter with my thumb and my forefinger right here. I'm taking and just holding on with the fingers underneath. No fingers in the way. I'm going to have all 10 when I'm done here. And you just drop your blade across this, right across those stitches like this. My mother-in-law used to do this with a razor blade. I think this is even a lot safer. Now, this is extra. Get rid of that. Make 2 with 23 in it. So that's for the top and the bottom. The sides need to have 36 piano keys, so that's pretty easy. Just sew 3 sets of 12 together. 3 sets of 12. You got those whole long sides. We're moving on to those corners. They are tricky, but lots of fun. I unsewed them in sets of 3. I've got 3 together. And I want to just make a corner with 2 of these. Now the seams are going this way and this one, so I want to put these right sides together with the seams going in the opposite direction so that they completely lock together. Let me get them locked on the top and the bottom. This is going to be interesting. Okay, now once they're locked together, take your ruler and draw a diagonal line corner to corner. Now, this is your sewing line. Do not cut on this line. So just draw your diagonal line, and then all you have to do is stitch on the line. Easy to do. It's very tricky. You can plan your colors and you can see what you think you're going to like, but just sew right in the line. Use your stiletto to hold those seams flat, because you actually get 2 different looks. This is the best fun. It's like amazing. You don't even know what you're going to get whenever you start sewing this together. But let me get that seam laying flat. Okay, now once you have sewn on the line, just check it out. See which side you want. If you open it this way, that's pretty good. Or if you open it the other way, you've got the opposite. So once you decide which side you like, how about I'm going to save this side? This is the side I'm going to save. So you just put your 1/4-inch line on the ruler, on the line you drew. Cut off the corner. This is excess, and this is now the corner that I'm going to do. I need to make a total of 4 of these. Well, let me finish up, and I'll lay it out on the design wall. My top is sewn together. It's just so cheery and bright. I love it. The next thing you want to do is add your framing border. Place 1 strip at the top, 1 strip at the bottom. No seaming on those pieces. They're just right. But on the sides, you need to take 2 strips, seam them together. They'll fit great. Do both sides, and then onto that long piano key. Now, on the right side, place your seams so that they all go down. That way you won't fight those seams when you're sewing that piano key on. And on this side, place the seams so they all go up No more fighting seams. Now the top and the bottom piano keys are the last to do. And take your corners and play with them. Right here, this looks good, but what if you'd take this one? You would end up with two pieces exactly the same. So play around with your corners, sew them onto your short sides, and then your short sides go right onto your quilt top. Now there's so much color in this quilt, you don't need a fancy quilting pattern. An overall pattern would be just great. So all you have to do is get it quilted and bound, and it's time for dessert. The Dessert Time quilt was designed by my good friend, Marty Hollis. Now this is Marty with her loving husband, Norm. Norm always says, life is too uncertain. Eat dessert first. Well, life certainly is uncertain. We lost Marty right after she designed this Dessert Time quilt in December 2008. Well, this quilt is as colorful as Marty's life in fabrics of yellow, green, blue, and shocking pink. It's just as vibrant as Marty. The large polka dots add a festive touch along with the large scale prints. Well, it's always helpful to have several pieces that read solid from a distance. I like the overall quilting to hold the layers together, and then the scroll quilting in the border. And the large scale print makes a great backing. I just love it. Well, Marty and I were friends for at least 30 years. She remembered coming to my home when I worked out of my garage to pick up books for her friend's quilt shop. She eventually came to work for me at my quilt shop. Well, this quilt is also bright in a similar color palette, but it's just a shade down. Now the textures of the fabrics are unique with this small dot here, a paisley print, a large scale, a ribbon print right here, and a stripe. You know, it's amazing how such a variety in fabrics look coordinated in the end. Well, this one is long arm quilted with a design often called Baptist quilting in reference to the pattern the hand quilters created working at the quilting frame in this arm motion, kind of as far as they could reach. Well, Marty loved fabrics, especially when planning her next crazy quilt vest. You know, she was the queen of vests, claiming to have made hundreds of them. Well, this is my Christmas quilt in very unusual holiday colors of lime green, turquoise, and red. Now this one was quilted on a conventional machine with easy diagonal lines through the blocks and then stitch in the ditch around the framing border and piano keys. It makes me feel very festive when I display it. Now this Dessert Time quilt brings back memories of Marty's traditional Christmas gift, home-baked biscotti. Well, I always look forward to sharing biscotti with Marty every year. Well, at Quilt in a Day, we are all patriotic flag wavers. Now, collections of red, white, and blue fabrics are our favorites. Lots of stars and flowers in this 40s looking fabric. You know, it's easy to pull a quilt together with coordinated fabrics from one line. Well, Marty was no exception with her patriotic spirit, warm smile, and compassionate character. Marty was a little older than me. I always said, when I grow up, I want to be just like Marty. May your quilts be a tribute to your life. Have fun, enjoy your quilting, and eat dessert first.